Hello there, Ray here. Today I will be going over part 2 of 10 tricks that no longer work in 1.13 but used to work in 1.12. If you haven't seen the prior video, part 1, I highly recommend you checking that out, as I also go over some tricks that still work in 1.13. And as always, if you want to learn more information about the tricks I showed today, there'll be more links down in the description. And if there's something that I missed that you know that doesn't work in 1.13 that used to work in 1.12, please tell me in the comments. I'll add it in part 3. The first one we're going to look into is TNT duping. The methods of TNT duping have changed since version 1.12, and those versions no longer work in 1.13. But TNT duping is not gone altogether. We still have it in the game. There is new devices that you can use in 1.13 that are just slightly bigger than the 1.12 ones. Now, I did do a separate video all about TNT duping and the new methods that work in the 1.13.2 versions. So you can refer to that video if you want more information on it. Next up is these glitched up pistons that have two heads. So essentially we have a piston that is retracted here, and then we also have the same version of it, but it's extended. Now there is quite a few different ways to get this type of setup, but it used to be pretty common to find this in survival. You just build a device similar to this one here, where it's pushing a redstone block around in a circle, and what you do is just unload this by logging out, and then when you log back in, there was a chance of it producing one of those double-headed pistons, where the game would glitch out thinking that it is extended and that it should be retracting, but it end up forgetting what it was supposed to be doing and end up with just two heads. Now this no longer occurs in this situation. What can occur is this whole system can just glitch out where it'll just freeze. So let me relog a couple times and show you what it looks like. Okay, I relogged a couple times and you can see that piston here is being updated from this redstone line here, but it's not pushing. And you can see this one here is not being updated by any redstone, but he is still pushing. And what is occurring here is the pistons just forgot what they were doing when they got unloaded, and then they just froze in that state. But notice that there is no double-headed pistons here. Although it's fairly easy to get these double-headed pistons, and Myron Iriel made a couple different videos showing how it's possible to get these in versions 1.13 using a different method. And you can also use other different types of tricks to get these double-headed pistons, as well as even getting them with extra heads sticking out the sides and the back of them. Next up is rail as well as carpet duping, and this has changed since version 1.12. So your old rail dupers may no longer work, and now in 1.13, most of the rail dupers in the past, the simple ones such as this one, this is a carpet duper, has now become locational, so it only works in some locations. But there is also some new designs to do with rail as well as carpet duping that do work in all locations that are unique to 1.13. So if you're looking for those versions, I did do a separate video all about those and how they work, which will be linked down in the description. And for the most part, they're pretty much the same size as the old versions. Next up has to do with chunks and populating chunks as well as generating chunks. So in the past, it's possible to generate a new chunk way out in the world, but not have that chunk being populated. So with generating, it'll place down the main blocks such as like the grass and the stone, but then when it comes to populating, it'll add in like the trees, the flowers, and the ores. Because they did this in two different steps, it was possible to fly flying machines out into those unpopulated chunks, but they were generated, and have the machines do different things, which would then manipulate the chunks so that when you did come to populated, you could get more of those type of resources that come with population. So you could get like more trees, or you could even produce like mob spawners, or you can manipulate the structure size of some structures that would try to come in with population. Now we actually did this on the Protect server where we produced 4 spider spawners in the air and produced a spider farm that gave us spider jockeys. And more recently we used this for Project Horizon, where we are producing gateway portals on demand anywhere in the end dimension that we want. And we're using this to put a portal all the way at the world border, so we can hop in one portal by 00 and get teleported out 30 million blocks with a single portal. And this is a really cool behavior and is only possible because of this ability. Now if you're curious about how we got those spider spawners or Project Horizon, I'll put some more videos talking about it down below. Now this has completely changed in versions 1.13. Earth Computer has tested this, making a fly machine, trying to produce a gateway portal in unpopulated chunks. And what occurred is that as soon as this fly machine went into a new chunk off in the distance, it also populated it. So if you want to get these cool mob spawners as well as gateway portals, you want to do it in 1.12. Next on our list is a pretty obscured one that most people would probably not recognize, but what they did is they changed the mushroom blocks and how they interact with furnaces. Now in version 1.12, it was possible to put these mushroom blocks as fuel down in here, but for some reason in 1.13 they went ahead and changed it so it's no longer possible to use them as a fuel source. Now it is still possible to put any type of block in the top slot here, so you can put like a minecart in there or you can put whatever block you want. Now I'm not sure why they made this change, as not many people were actually using the mushroom block as a fuel source. It wasn't like too overpowered or anything. So now if you have a furnace that has these mushroom blocks in the bottom slot here, it's now considered a discontinued block since you can no longer acquire it in 1.13. This is something we're going to have to collect on the project server prior to updating to 1.13. Next on our list has to do with pumpkins and them being enchanted. Now, 1.12, the pumpkins with a face were just called pumpkin, and you can use a curse book such as the Curse of Vanishing or the Curse of Binding, and you can apply these to the pumpkins, and you can even put those on your head. Now with 1.13, they came out with two different types of pumpkins. They came out with normal pumpkins as well as carved ones. And in 1.13, you technically can still enchant the pumpkin ones, but these are ones that don't have the faces on it, and therefore you cannot put them on your head. And you can no longer enchant the carved pumpkins, which is now a discontinued item. If you would have went ahead and enchanted these back in 1.12, you now have a discontinued item. And jack-o'-lanterns cannot be enchanted at all. Now I did do a couple videos going into more detail about the changes to do with pumpkins and some tricks you can do to fool the game into thinking it's a different type of pumpkin. Next up has to do with name tags. One of the very first videos that I made about Minecraft was a cool glitch I showed where you could get these no space name tags, which essentially was a name tag that looked like it didn't exist. So when you would put it on a mob, it would show up pretty much with nothing above its head. They have changed the way that characters are now handled in 1.13, so all the no space name tags have been converted over into this character here, which is just the default character for something that they can't represent. So like this villager here, I gave it the no space name tag back in 1.12, and then I upgraded to 1.13, and you can see now he has this symbol on top of his head. This was a pretty cool trick, allowed you to make mobs that look like they had no name tags, but were still named. And in that video I also talked about other cool tricks that you can do with named items that still work in this version if you're curious about those. The next one here has to do with chunk loading. Way back in 1.8, I discovered it's possible to do dimensional chunk loading, where you could load other dimensions without a player being there, and expanded upon this discovery in 1.9, which revolutionized the way that technical Minecraft can be done, as it was possible to run farms in other dimensions without players even being there. Unfortunately, this breaks in 1.13, so as soon as there's no player in a different dimension, the game will try to unload those chunks. And Earth Computer looked into this, and it seems that there's no easy way to get around this change. Now there are commands called force load where you can use commands to load chunks that there's no players in, but for the most part you need to have players around to load chunks in other dimensions. And they also changed the way that chunk loading works in general, but chunk loading has went through quite a few different changes recently, even in the 1.14 versions, where there's some indication that they're going to change it some more, as in 1.14 it's even possible to have chunks such as in Spawn do random ticks, which never was possible unless there was a player nearby. But there is some indication that it will be possible to do some type of method of chunk loading. But we'll have to see what happens in the full release of 1.14. Now there is some even stranger bugs that are occurring with chunk loading, as in 1.14 that when the player flies around, it's possible for huge parts of the world to not even load in for the player. And this is a major bug that will prevent the 1.14 version from being even played if it even comes out as a full release. Which could mean it could end up very much like 1.13 where we have a full release but not very many people are able to play it. Now, I have linked that bug report down in the description, and I would really appreciate if you guys would go and upvote that. Otherwise, we're just not going to be able to play 1.14 full release. Next one on our list is a pretty unfortunate change. They made it no longer possible to get shields onto armor stands in survival. Now in the past I discovered it's possible to put armor onto different types of entities that normally wouldn't be able to wear this type of armor using dispensers. And it's currently my most popular video. What they changed in 1.13, they said, well, the player cannot actually use shields and put them on an armor stand normally. Therefore, we went ahead and removed all the abilities to put shields on armor stands using dispensers, which doesn't make a lot of sense. They should have just made it so that armor stands could accept shields with the player right-clicking on them in survival. So if you want to have these cool shields on your armor stands in your survival world, you want to do it prior to upgrading to 1.13. And we did this on the Protect server. We have Gordy, which is holding that shield with the jack-o'-lantern face on it, which is really cool. So I'm not sure why they would remove this, as you still can use dispensers to put like armor on villagers. Next on our list is another thing that broke in 1.13. Back in the day, in like 1.8 I believe, it was possible to put rails on only 7 layers of snow, and mobs are also possible to spawn on top of this layers of snow. Then they changed it so that you would only be able to put rails on top of 8 layers of snow, and mobs would only spawn on this, and you can no longer do it on 7 layers of snow. And on the Protect server, we went ahead and collected a bunch of different types of blocks that could sit on top of 7 snow layers, which are now discontinued as you'd had to use 8 snow layers. But at 1.13 they changed this all together. They made it so it's no longer possible to put these blocks on top of either 8 or 7 layers. And mobs no longer spawn on top of them either. And if you had a rail such as this one, which I put in 1.12, and if it would get updated, so if I just place a block right beside this rail, you can see it's going to pop off now. So if you try right-clicking on either of these snow layers, you see I can't place them on them. I'm not sure why they changed this. I'm guessing because snow layers has different properties than like solid blocks. But it was a pretty cool behavior to having mobs be able to spawn on top of them, and you had a couple different heights to work with. As 7 layers you can see is pretty low down, about 3/4 of a block, and they were spawning on this. And even 8 layers, which looks like a full block, is actually only 0.8 high of a block. And that was actually useful in some farms where you can make the mobs go down lower and then go underneath of some stuff. But now that's all been removed. That is 10 tricks that no longer work in 1.13 that used to work in 1.12. I am going to do another video going over some more tricks that no longer work in 1.13. So look forward to part 3, and if you did see something in this video or in part 1 that you know no longer works in 1.13 that used to work in 1.12, please tell me down in the comments and I'll add it into the next video. I would love to hear how many of these you actually knew about. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and share it with somebody. And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe. And I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye!